Hello and welcome back to another edition of the PDPreps podcast, week 11 edition here. I am sports reporter Gus Morris. That is Keenan O'Doherty, my colleague and co-host. Another packed show coming your way. Reviewing all of the week 10 scores, previewing a loaded week 11 slate, bunch of league deciding games all across the county. And then looking at our week 11 rankings, and also taking a look at some of the games coming up this week for our predictions. So pack show, stay tuned. We're going to start off throwing it over to Keenan. Keenan, we're getting really good at picking these games of the week. Another great one, Egg Bowl thriller. Casa Grande triumphs over crosstown rival Petaluma 29-28. Petaluma was the number 5 team in our rankings, dropped out of the rankings now, but just a total thriller as we kept making egg jokes, scrambled up the VVAL race. But you were there. Tell us about the game.
Yeah, not only was Petaluma 5th in our rankings, but they were 7-1 and they were undefeated in the league at this point. Casa Grande came in 4-4, 2-2, a perfect 500 record. Had kind of an up and down season up to this point. They had a tough non-league slate, and then of course, Vintage was a tough game for them. So was American Canyon as well. So yeah, they've definitely had their ups and downs this season, but like we said in the preview up to the game last week, I mean, when these two teams play, they just bring it. You can't really expect anything else, and bring it they did. Look, it was a classic back and forth battle. I mean, Casa was struggling to stop the run. Petaluma was struggling to stop the pass. There were a couple key things that I wanted to talk about that kind of shifted the tides of the game a little bit. Obviously, when Wyatt Abramson, I believe it was like 4th and 5 going into towards the end of the third quarter, head coach John Antonio and co decided to punt the ball, which was interesting because both teams were going for 4th downs the entire game, and Petaluma converted a lot of them.
How much time was left at that point?
I believe it was just at the tail end of the third quarter.
Okay,
if I'm correct. I'll have to go back and check, but yeah, so punted it, and then Petaluma was able to take their first lead of the game, 28-21. It seemed like they were unstoppable, but then Casa just came back and did what they do. I mean, if Gus, I just looking at all the teams in the area, if you jumble up a couple teams into the category of who can score on a whim, Casa Grande is certainly one of those teams.
Yeah. Well, and Petaluma too, because I mean we saw that.
And Petaluma. Yeah. Correct, but in this case, it was Casa Grande who scored on a whim. But it was crazy. Turnover on downs. Casa Grande ended up finally stopping the run. They stopped him on 4th down. It was like 4th and inches. Big Cody Cornelius during that last series ended up being plugged back into D tackle because he was shifting around the defense a little bit to linebacker, DN, whatever, because Petaluma was checking to see where he was at. And then once Petaluma started to not check where he was at, John Antonio gave him the call on that last series to really plug him in at the D tackle, and he made some key plays there. Great kid, and what a superior athlete. I don't think I've seen a kid that big, that fast.
Yeah.
But some drama towards the end. I mean, look, Wyatt Abramson had thrown 3 touchdown passes already, to Lucas Miles. Lucas Miles had like 145 yards receiving, but it came down to Lucas Miles' arm being the key here. Double pass to the right side, and Spencer Allman was just wide open. I don't know how he got that wide open, but a double pass. John Antonio brought out all the stops. That brought them within 1 at 27-28, excuse me.
And how much obviously this was late in the fourth quarter too, right?
Oh, this was so after the first turnover on downs, Casa got the ball back with like 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
And then they were able to drive down a little bit and get that touchdown. So now it's just over a minute left, and the 2-point conversion's coming. Obviously, you got to go for it. 27-28, you're down 1. wide open receiver in the end zone. Forget how you pronounce his name, so forgive me. Jordan Giacomini.
Yep.
Giacomini. Jordan Giacomini, perfect, wide open in the end zone, beat his man, 29-28. And then right after that, Petaluma did get the ball back with just under a minute left. Another turnover on downs by Casagrande's defense. They got the ball back, 47.5 seconds left. And that was the ball game. So high drama in Petaluma, Gus, to say the least, but it's the Egg Bowl, man. I really didn't expect anything less. I don't think you did either. Casagrande showed out with their new all black uniforms, which look pretty sick.
Nice.
To be fair, but yeah, high drama in Petaluma, and some other stats we're going to go with. Obviously Henry Ellis, 8 rushes, 48 yards, 3 touchdowns. Silas Paula-Georges had a touchdown himself on 15 rushes, 71 yards. And big Ed Burnsich, 24 rushes, 113 yards for the Trojans. Like I said, Lucas Miles had 145 yards receiving on 8 catches, but he also had that touchdown pass for 39 yards. Wyatt Abramson was 16-24 for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. So like I said, Gus, great game, high drama in Petaluma, but yeah, I guess we're doing pretty well in picking the games of the week this week.
Yeah, we've had a couple now that have, like, I mean, this one's probably up there in contention for game of the year contender as well. We've had a couple of those for a game of the week. So I think we're doing pretty well at picking them this, so far this season. But yeah, I mean that Lucas Miles pass some shades of that Christian McCaffrey touchdown pass, that trick play pass that the Niners had on
maybe,
Sunday.
well, maybe McCaffrey saw the film. Maybe he was like, hey, maybe I should do that.
Maybe Shanahan saw that. It was like, hey, I like that play from Antonio. I'm gonna use
Lucas Miles, you're a trendsetter, buddy. Good job.
Yeah, but like we said too, this really messes up, or you create some very interesting scenarios here for the final week of the regular season in the VFL. Vintage is done for the regular season. They beat Napa in the big game last week, so they finished the year 5-1. Their one loss, of course, to Petaluma. They beat American Canyon, they beat Casa Grande, they beat all the other teams they had to beat. But what this does now is this sets up a final duel for the VFL title on this Friday. Petaluma, American Canyon, the two teams tied for second place right now at 4-1. Battling it out to see, what happens here. Petaluma, if they win, since I guess technically they would share the league title with Vintage, but because Petaluma has the head-to-head win over Vintage, they get the automatic playoff qualifier and a guaranteed first round home playoff game, which is huge because I think they're kind of right there at like the 5-6 range right now in NCSD 4 rankings. So, top 4 teams get to host, but also if you win your league, you get to host a first round game. So, Petaluma also, again, hasn't won a league title. I think it was 2009. I keep messing these up. It's either 2009 or 2011. I think it's 2009. So it's been a while for Petaluma since they've won a league title as well. So, and then again, if they lose to American Canyon, they finish in second place. There's no tied for first. They'll finish the year 4-2, and they'll be in second place behind American Canyon Vintage, and Vintage will get the the automatic qualifier and be able to host a first round game. And it's funny because that game actually could be against another local team here in Rancho Cotati. Both of those teams are kind of in those spots right now in the rankings for D2, where they could face each other in first round games. So definitely one to keep an eye on, Petaluma American Canyon this week. But it's also not the only, kind of like I said at the top, not the only potential league deciding game we have coming up this week. Let's hop over to the NBL Oak. I was over at Windsor's 51-30 win over Annalee last week. Monster game for Hayden Anderson. He found out, I guess, a couple hours before the game that he'd be starting at quarterback again. His older brother, Judson Anderson, I guess, had a minor injury, so was out. Sounds like he'll be back this week for the Newman game, which will be our game of the week, and we'll preview that in a little bit. But Hayden Anderson, this guy's just a freak. Again, we knew this, but he's just kind of this once in a generational player. You throw him in anywhere and he's going to get the job done. 18 carries, 231 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 of those touchdowns in the second half, 150 of those rushing yards in the second half. He had 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone. Just put Windsor on his back. This is a guy that I mean, you saw it, same thing in the Rancho Cotati game. I mean, this is a guy, just give him the ball, get out of the way, and he'll make things happen. So that was kind of the game plan for this Annalee game as well. But it wasn't over until late. I mean, Hayden really kind of, when he had those 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, I think it was on their final 3 possessions that Windsor had on offense, and they kind of needed them too. It was an interesting game. It was 21-20. Windsor led at halftime. The only difference being a missed Annalee PAT. Just before the half, Annalee had scored a touchdown and then missed the kick. So it was 21. Instead of it being tied 21-20, it was 21. It was 21-20 instead of being tied at 21. But yeah, I mean, first half, Gunnar Erickson opened the game with an 80-yard kickoff return touchdown. It was kind of looking like Windsor was going to run away with it. And then Annalee, I mean, we've said all season they're a really impressive team. Their offense can hang with anybody. And they did just that. Sammy Long had a great game, a pass for over 300 yards. But yeah, it was close. Again, 1-point game at the half. Coming second half, Hayden Anderson has his longest score of the day, 71-yard rushing touchdown, gives Windsor a 28-20 lead. Annalee comes back. They have first and goal at Windsor's 1-yard line. I think this is like midway through the third quarter. A touchdown, brings them back within 1 point. If they go for 2, they could tie the game. First and goal at Windsor's 1. First play, tackle for loss. Second play, Jacob Byrne comes through, streaking through, sophomore for Windsor, sacks Sammy Long, backs them up even farther. And Annalee, again, from being first and 1 or first and goal at Windsor's 1, has to settle for a 28-yard field goal or something. And from there, it was kind of over. I mean, Windsor added a score after that. So did Annalee, but then again, Hayden Anderson took over in the fourth and had 3 touchdowns himself. So it was close until it wasn't. Windsor pulled away. They're our number 1 team in our rankings for a reason. Showed it again on Friday. And yeah, they'll head into their season or regular season finale against Cardinal Newman, which again is our game of the week. 7-2, undefeated right now in the NBL Oak. They can they control their own destiny. They can clinch the NBL Oak title with the win over the Cardinals this week. But kind of a clinic from Windsor. This is what we've seen from them all season. I mean, 439 rushing yards, 97, rushing yards, and a touchdown for Max McFerrin. 85 rushing yards for Wyatt Morris. I will say though, something to watch, and I will say this is more so credit to Annalee's offense, which has been electric all season. Windsor's D had a couple let-ups there. This is only the third time all season that they've allowed 30 points in a game. So something to watch, I guess, maybe for the Newman game coming up. I'm sure again, Windsor getting up for a big rivalry game against Newman, not a hard thing to do. So, and again, it's like they had a couple touchdown lead at the end, and Annalee, Annalee moves the ball well. Sammy Long, like we've said all season, is probably one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in this area. So, and again, 23-41 for him, 303 yards. 2 touchdowns, an interception. Solomon Hall, 7 catches, 112 yards, touchdown. Fett Gonzalez, 7 catches, 75 yards, touchdown. Giovanni Vicentin had 82 receiving yards. But they were also missing their top wide receiver in Logan Mitchell. But so who knows how it would have gone if Mitchell had played. Maybe it might have been a little closer. But Annalee has the chops, I think, to go pretty far in the NCSD 3 playoffs. Their record might probably have some teams looking at them like, oh, maybe they aren't that good, but they're very, very good. And I think they gave Windsor all they could handle, but Windsor just has too much firepower. So definitely an interesting game there. But any notes from you, Keenan, on that one?
No, not really. I think you touched on it pretty well. Yeah, no, I again, I mean, Annalee's good, man. They could certainly surprise a lot of teams. But let's head on over to Rancho Cotati, Montgomery. Another game, Gus, that was kind of wasn't over till it was. Seemed like Rancho pulled away late, 14 unanswered points in the second half. Jacob Pruitt, still in for Liam Keeney. Using his legs as he should, one of the fastest kids in the area for a reason. 18 carries, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns. And they have they obviously have Santa Rosa this week to close things out, but I'm sure all of Rancho's eyes will be on the Newman Windsor game. and for good reason there. And speaking of Newman, Gus, they played Santa Rosa, and they kind of cruised a little bit, didn't they?
Yeah, back on track for Newman in this one. 49-14 winners over Santa Rosa. Like we said, Acevedo, 211 yards, three touchdowns on 10 carries. Workman-like game for him. Matthew Helden, their quarterback, at 3 total touchdowns, 2 passing, 1 rushing. Again, not a whole lot, that was surprising from this game. But Newman, I think it was definitely a needed game to kind of shake off some of that frustration from that Rancho game a couple weeks ago, where they got shut out and their offense couldn't work at all. So, probably like we had kind of talked about with or joked about, I guess, with Santa Rosa head coach Roy Keegan. He's like, oh, after Newman had been shut out by Rancho, he's like, oh, great, so they're going to come into our place, really fired up and ready to shake off the rust. So it kind of seems like that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, this kind of sets up a very interesting, again, this is, league deciding game here. Newman is heading to Windsor, Friday night, 7:00. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Newman's been playing, again, kind of an up and down season for them. They've been better, obviously, since Centino came back. That one letdown spot in the Rancho game. I know that they had some guys sick. There's a flu or something going around, that RVS flu or something. It's not COVID, but I've heard Newman's had it pretty bad. Her Carrillo got it pretty bad. The school wise, I'm not sure about teams or whatever, but Newman had it, Windsor had it. It's just kind of going around. So I heard it hit Newman. I heard it hit Newman pretty hard. So I think they still have a couple guys in and out, but for the most part, they're at full strength. So no excuses there. But yeah, we'll see. Again, this is for both of these teams. Newman coming into this Windsor game, Windsor hosting Newman. Both these teams are going to be able to get up for this game. So it will be interesting to see. And I guess we'll touch on a few of those scenarios here as well, kind of like in the VVAL. Whatever happens on Friday, at Windsor High School will determine who wins the NBL Oak. Windsor, if they beat Newman, they finish the year league season 5-0, I believe. And yeah, they would claim their first league title. I believe this one is 2011. First league title since 2011. I believe it would also be the first win over Cardinal Newman, I want to say, ever. They've only been playing each other in league for the last, within the last 10 years. And then before, Windsor still, I think the school was incorporated in 1985. So they've only had a program for 3 decades now or something, less than that. So Windsor's never beaten Newman. So to add some stakes to that, but if Windsor wins, they win out. They're the NBLO champs. They get the automatic qualifier. They'd host a first-round game. They're probably going to be top 3 seed in NCSD 2, if not top 2 if they beat Newman. But if Newman beats Windsor, then we'd have a 3-way tie for first. And again, I think we had touched on these last week, but now that we kind of have all the scenarios fully set, we'll just touch them again. But yeah, if Newman beats Windsor, we'd finish with a 3-way tie between Cardinal Newman, Windsor, and Rancho Cotati. Due to the number drawn tiebreaker that all the schools do before the season, Rancho Cotati would get the automatic qualifier and host a first-round game. So anyway, that's the NBL scenarios. Again, we touched on those last week, but just now they're all set in stone. So we will finish with those, and whatever we'll let things play out this week. But jumping over, we'll touch on one other game from last week, and that was the St. Vincent game, against Healdsburg. They actually played this on a Friday night. They brought in some floodlights at St. Vincent. They don't have lights at their field. They usually play on Saturdays. So they brought some lights in. And they beat Healdsburg 43-6. Probably could have been worse. Just, knowing, seeing kind of how
100% could have been worse.
Seeing how both these teams have been playing. There was a big story, a couple weeks ago of an 84-0 win, down in the East Bay, caused a lot of controversy.
A bunch of people got suspended in that one.
Not the case up here, thankfully. So anyway, 43-6, St. Vincent beat Healdsburg. Kai Hall, huge game, 194 rushing yards. I think this is the 8th time over 100 rushing yards this season. 3 touchdowns for him. Freshman Gabe Casanova, so went over 100 yards rushing with a touchdown. Again, kind of like the Newman Santa Rosa game, a bit what we expected. Not a whole lot of surprises here, but St. Vincent is now 9-0. I believe if they win this week against Maria Carrillo, it would be their first ever 10-0 season in school history and their first undefeated season, I want to say, since like 1981, 88, somewhere in there, back when the season went, 8 games. But Keenan, a guy that you profiled to start the year, Kyle Hall, I think you touched on this in your early season feature on him about kind of where he's at, as far as career rushing wise in the Redwood Empire, but he's getting really close to breaking some of these records here.
Well, yeah, and he already has. Obviously, he's kind of shattered the St. Vincent de Paul all-time rushing records here. I mean, he's got 20 rushing TDs this year. I mean, this kid is absolutely nuts. But yeah, he broke Chris Farina's record for St. Vincent all-time rushing earlier this year. Farina held that from 07-09. But now he is at currently 5,216 rushing yards and 67 touchdowns overall, which is now creeping up on the Redwood Empire all-time rushing record. The 67 touchdowns already broke that record. It was by Joe Trombetta from Casa Grande from, I believe, 2003 to 2005. Trombetta had 60 touchdowns, so Kai is clear of that. And he is slowly creeping up on the all-time rushing yards record. Hall is currently 231 rushing yards away from Trombetta, who has 5,447 rushing yards. So once again, Kai Hall at 5,216 rushing yards. And the all-time Redwood Empire record is 5,447 rushing yards. I mean, and if we know something about that Kai Hall, Kai could literally do that in a game. So it's really nothing new for him having a big rushing game. But yeah, this is Gus, you and I were kind of talking off camera about this, but if Kai ends up breaking this record, which I mean, barring any
he's going to, yeah.
He's going to. This might be a record that won't be broken for a long time coming, considering that Kai obviously started as a freshman on varsity. You don't really see that too often nowadays. And plus he did that with like half a season for COVID years too. So
yeah, I was going to point that out too. Yeah, I mean, so Trombetta did that. He set the all-time rushing record within in 3 seasons at Casa Grande. Kai is going to do this in basically 3.5. I mean, he only played 5 games in his sophomore year due to COVID. 11 games his freshman year as a starter. I think he was the starting running back, the entire time. I think he's like NCS freshman of the year. Like he had, he's been a legitimate, like top tier, RB1 his entire career, ever since he set foot, at St. Vincent. So he's had an amazing career. And yeah, I mean, that's what we were kind of saying. Like there aren't a lot of 4-year starting running backs like this who also again have sustained success like Kai has had. I mean, his career, this is nuts. I have his stats pulled up right here, but his career yards per carry average is 8.9. Like he's averaging almost a first down every time he touches the ball, which is crazy.
Unreal.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a guy who will go down as, again, at this point, I think it's no doubt he's the best football player in St. Vincent history. Probably the best small school player that we've ever had in this area. And I think he's, again, you'd have to go back and kind of look at some of the guys who have, gone on and played pro, like guys like, Elijah Qualls and Dre Robinson and stuff. But I think he might, I mean, again, it might be too early to tell, but, he's probably up there and, in the conversation for one of the best players of all time in Sonoma County. So, and again, section championship for St. Vincent last year, and they're well on their way to doing that again this year. So, a talented player and a winning player, which is, don't always go hand in hand. So, just an amazing career for Kai Hall, and we're really going to enjoy watching him for the last few games of his career here as St. Vincent heads into the playoffs. But the other thing too that St. Vincent can do is they're ending their regular season this week against Maria Carrillo. MBL Redwood finale, kind of same situation as over in the Oak. St. Vincent and Windsor kind of in the same boat, where if St. Vincent beats Carrillo, they would be the outright MBL Redwood champs for the second straight season, secure a first round playoff game, even though they already pretty much have that. I mean, they're going to be the number 1 overall seed in D7 when it's all said and done. But yeah, second league title in a row is well within grasp if they can get past Carrillo. But if Carrillo beats St. Vincent, same kind of thing. We'd have a three-way tie. St. Vincent, Carrillo, and Ukiah. And I believe it's Ukiah or Carrillo has the tiebreaker, so they would get an automatic playoff berth in a first-round playoff game. So that could be huge for Carrillo. I know that they're kind of on the bubble. I think they're in D. What are they? I think they're in D4. I want to say.
I believe so.
So yeah, that's a huge game coming up for both teams. But St. Vincent is assured a playoff spot anyway. But Carrillo kind of needs this win to sneak in. So
yeah, and I do want to say something about these tiebreakers, folks. It's literally coming down to the last point on the tiebreakers. Like,
yeah,
this isn't like because there's three phases of the tiebreakers, and it's literally coming. This could potentially come down to the very last one.
Yeah.
So it is as tight as can be for those people who don't really understand the tiebreaker scenarios or anything like that. It could come down to the final point.
Yeah, it obviously goes overall record first, and then it's head-to-head games, and then it's down to the numbers drawn. And again, if you're not familiar, all these schools draw numbers 1 through 12 in the NBL or in the NBL before the start of the season, and then the lowest one is considered the winner for any of these tiebreaker scenarios. So Carrillo has the lowest number, Rancho Cotati has the lowest number. Yeah, and
it's just the way it rolls.
It's gonna be fascinating. And there was a scenario too. Oh, excuse me. There was a scenario too over in the VVAL that even broke it down to like fewest points allowed if we got to a point where numerous teams tied for first, which would have been a whole other can of worms to get
bizarre into. Yeah,
thankfully it's not that complicated over there in the VVAL, but another place that is very complicated is in the NCL one. We're not even going to try to deal with that right now. But just know that Clear Lake secured at least a share of the title over there in the NCL one. They actually lost last week, but a bunch of other teams below them lost, and now there's like a one game separating them between them and I think 3 or 4 other teams. So based on how things play out next week, I think the Clear Lake or the Lake County Record B even set it up where it's like there's at least going to be a 2-way tie, or there could at least be a 2-way tie all the way up to a 5-way tie, which is just I've never heard of that before.
Bizarre.
So, anyway, coming it's going to be exciting here coming down the stretch, but I think that's the end of our Week 10 recap. Keenan, anything else that we want to touch on before we head into Week 11 preview?
Nope. Let's head on into the Week 11 previews here. We're going to start off with our rankings. Little shuffle at the bottom of the pecking order here. We got Windsor 1, Rancho 2, Cardinal Newman 3, St. Vincent 4. So our top 4 stay the same. They remain unchanged. But Casa Grande bumps into 5, making their first appearance back in the top 5 rankings since our opening week predictions, Gus. So
yes,
the Gauchos.
No, I think it was week. No, they were in their week 4 or 5. I want to say they were. I think they were 2 and 2.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it's either way. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while for Casa Grande. We did do some debating about this. We did have some heated exchanges back and forth. I guess as heated as they can get, but ultimately, Casa and Petaluma. I mean, the head-to-head wins out no matter what. Obviously, Casa lost the vintage, but Petaluma beat vintage, all that other stuff. But then again, Casa won that head-to-head matchup that kind of trumps all we thought. So Casa Grande at 5. In the bubble is Petaluma, Annalee Monte, Ukiah, and Maria Carrillo. That's our rankings. Gus, anything else on the rankings?
I will say it will be this week. The last week. So next week is going to be the last week that we do our rankings, at least until playoffs are over. So we're just going to kind of suspend them until playoffs are done, and then kind of bring them back for like an end of the year rankings. But things could get very weird next year if next week. Like I'm just trying to think. Like let's say again, like this is part of our debate was too. It's like so we're going to drop. Like Casa and Petaluma have pretty similar, Casa has a few more losses, but Casa and Petaluma have pretty similar, resumes. And then, but then if you look at, if Petaluma beats American Canyon next week and then Casa lost it with American Canyon Vintage, like what do we do there? Like does it head-to-head win still? trump all.
You're getting too ahead of yourself, dude. Let's just.
Well, no, but then also, but I'm even looking more at the top. Like, what if Newman beats Windsor? You know, like who goes to 1? Or would we put Newman to 1? Would Rancho go to 1? Because Rancho lost to Windsor. Like, how would we work that out?
Keep in mind what we did with Windsor and Rancho. They were 1 and 3, and we just flip-flopped them. So
yeah, but then again, are we really going to put Newman ahead of Rancho when Rancho beat them 27-0? Like, so that's
these rankings are hard, people. We put a lot of thought.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not just putting numbers next to teams and just calling it good. So. Exactly. Anyway, we'll see what happens, but some interesting things could play out next week.
Yep, absolutely. Just chaos, man. It's been chaos the past couple of weeks, but let's so that's it for our rankings. Once again, one more time: Windsor, Rancho, Cardinal, Newman are our top 3. St. Vincent 4, Casa Grande 5. Just to reiterate, let's head to our game of the week preview. Gus, you will be there. Number 1 Windsor versus number 3 Cardinal Newman. This is the one everyone's been kind of waiting for. Some key factors heading into this one. Gus, talk to me. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the game. I mean, again, I went out and I did our 100-yard walk yesterday. Actually, yeah, we didn't even say this at the top, but today is Wednesday, November 2nd. I went out yesterday night to Colonel Newman, did our 100-yard walk with Colonel Newman's star running back linebacker, Santino Acevedo. Talked about this game, kind of what this game means. It's an interesting matchup this year because obviously last year there was all the drama with, these two teams were on a collision course kind of close to the end of the season. And then 2 days before the game or 1 day before the game, Newman had to back out because they had a COVID outbreak and caused a lot of controversy at the time. Obviously Windsor was playing, this is going to be Windsor with a very, very good team playing against Newman, with Newman's former head coach, Paul Cronin. I mean, it like based on the conversations I had, this is like that was going to be one of the biggest games in Sonoma County in I don't know a decade plus. Like it was going to be packed. Didn't end up happening. Rancho went on to win the MBLO title. That game was never played. Now a lot of those guys have been graduated from Windsor. They had a ton of star senior talent last year. That's they're all gone. But Windsor was just reloaded really well. With new head coach Dean Sexton, who was Paul Cronin's JV coach at Newman for a long time, and kind of a cool connection here. But DJ was also the JV coach again at Newman, and so the guys like Nicky Ayer, Matthew Hilden, they were all kids that he coached when he was a JV coach over at Newman. So now he's playing against them, all these kids who are seniors and juniors now over at Newman. So kind of a cool connection there. Again, this has been a growing rivalry the last couple of years. I mean, the Windsor joined the MBL. I want to say that was 2013, 2014, something like that. So, and honestly, since 2009, Windsor has never beaten Cardinal Newman. They're 0-8, going back to 2009. And I also don't know. I mean, that's as far back as Max Preps records go. Windsor is still a relatively newer school. I mean, I think they were founded in 1995 or something like that. So they've only been around for 3 decades. So they haven't played Newman a lot, but in the short history going back 13 years, they've never beaten them. I think they played, don't quote me on this, they might have played once, or they played once, maybe twice. I want to say in that weird little shortened COVID year. I don't remember. It might have been, or maybe they played Ranch twice. Anyway, but they've never won, and none of these games have been close. So now setting the stage for this one, Windsor is first place in the MBL Oak. They're hosting Newman again, coming off of that canceled game last year. Some old coaching staff from Newman still over at Windsor. And Newman could totally play spoiler here. I think when I talked to Acevedo, he had said, he's like, yeah, this is like a championship game for us. This is, Newman, even if they win, this is actually a game, I think like we said earlier, this is a game that Rancho is rooting for Newman to win this thing. Because if Newman beats Windsor, then Rancho gets that automatic qualifier, and again, it's a 3-way tie for the for first place. But so Newman knows the stakes. They're ready for this. They're coming into hostile territory, and they're ready to get the job done. But Windsor obviously, like we said, rivalry games, Egg Bowl games, it does not take much for these teams to get up for this kind of game. So expecting another packed atmosphere, expecting a rowdy crowd going on. And yeah, it's gonna be epic. We'll get to our predictions here in a sec, but yeah, I mean Windsor probably is the favorite in this one. I'd have to say. I don't know by how much. I think it's going to be close, but again, we'll kind of see how it goes. One last note on this too, but it looks like Judson Anderson, Windsor's quarterback, will play this week. I might have mentioned that at the top, but Dean Sexton had told me too. He's like, I think Hayden's going to start at quarterback, and then Judson will be available. So maybe he's still kind of nursing whatever he's coming back from. But yeah, it sounds like Windsor will be at pretty much full strength for this game. And yeah, I think Newman is kind of shaken off the pains of that Rancho game too. So both these teams are coming fired up. It's going to be a good one. Don't miss it. 7:00 at Windsor. Yeah, for our final regular season game of the week. So should be going.
Yeah, no doubt. One quick thing too. I mean, at least what Windsor did against Rancho. I mean, Judson. They didn't even start Judson, even though he was completely ready to go. They started Hayden, and he ran the first 4 or 5 plays of the game.
Yeah.
And they were doing really well with it. So who knows, man? Who knows? But it's at Windsor's place, right?
It is 7:00.
So one of the bigger stadiums in the area too. Which
get there early though, still, because it's going to be. I would imagine even the JV game will get a pretty good crowd. So
go crazy. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Well, yeah. Game of the week sets up to be a big one. Obviously, we've been pretty good at predicting these, or not predicting these, but choosing these. But this one is obviously a no brainer for the game of the week.
Tooting our own horn on that one. We're pretty good at choosing these games.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's head into our predictions. Gus, I got one on over you again. I guess my momentum is carrying on these last couple of weeks of the season. I was 8-1 last week. You were 7-2. The main one here, obviously, the Gauchos kind of helped me out in that one. You had Petaluma, but you are 78-31 overall. I am 74-34 overall. Let's see, anything else? Maria Carrillo hurt both of us a little bit there, losing to St. Mary's of Albany, who is, I believe, still undefeated at this point. But yeah, let's get into our week 11 predictions, Gus. Here we go, starting with our game of the week. Cardinal Newman at Windsor. We just talked about it. We're split on this one. I want to be split on this one just because it makes it more entertaining. But I really think that Windsor's defense, if they're not suspect, but if they're having some holes in that gap, I think Santino Acevedo could exploit it a little bit. I'm gonna go with Newman, but Gus, you're going with the Jaguars.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. Just because I mean, again, you were at that Rancho game where their running backs kind of ran all over Windsor. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. But I mean, again, having seen Windsor play a couple times, and again, even seeing them last week, you're right. Their defense might have had a bit of a letdown spot. I mean, again, we talked about it, how good Annalie's offense is, but I just think that maybe there might have been a part of Windsor where they might have been looking a little bit ahead to this Newman game. So I think that this is a team, this is a Windsor team that is so hungry for this win, especially coming off of last year's disappointing game that didn't happen. Rivalry game, league title at stake, first time beating Newman at stake. I think Windsor takes this one. We'll see how the game script kind of flows, but Newman's offense hasn't been really known to be really explosive at times, which again, against the Windsor team, that's offense has been pretty explosive. I think if Windsor gets up a few scores, I think it could get out of hand, but yeah, Newman could kind of, I'm sure Newman is going to kind of slow it down, get ace the ball a lot, ground and pound, kind of what's been their bread and butter this year. So if that happens, I think it could be close. But if Windsor gets out to an early lead, I think it could be a runaway. So either way, I'm going Windsor in this one.
Yep. All right, Annalee at Montgomery. Big game for both teams here. Obviously, two teams that haven't had the best of luck in the NBL Oak this year. Obviously, Rancho Windsor, Cardinal Newman have been the bread and butter, obviously. But Annalee's offense, as we saw last week, seems back to form, and their offense has been explosive, all explosive, and kind of Monty has had trouble in the past stopping a high scoring passing attack, as we saw against Casa Grande. So for that reason, I'm going Annalee. Gus, you may have separate reasons, but you're going for Annalee as well.
Yeah, no, I think this is this could also, I mean, this is going to be a really fun game, I think. And again, I think if this, if there weren't so many awesome other games that we had to cover this week, I think this would be a really fun one to go check out. But Annalee is probably already secured for a playoff spot over in D3, but Montgomery probably needs this win to secure a spot. I'm sorry, Annalee in D5. Montgomery probably needs this win though, just to actually secure a playoff spot over in D3. So I think Monty's going to be fired up. Again, Annalee has a really good high powered offense. I know they're kind of banged up right now. I mean, everyone's kind of banged up right now, but yeah, I think this one has shootout potential. But if it is a shootout, I think Annalee just has a bit more firepower. And right in the hot hand of Sammy Long and some of those receivers, I think it is an Annalee win. So.
Yep. Santa Rosa at Rancho Cotati. All eyes in Roner Park will obviously be up in Santa Rosa as Newman plays Windsor. But then again, Rancho still has to play Santa Rosa last game of the season. Santa Rosa certainly has not had the best luck in the NBL Oak. And regardless of where Rancho's focus is, we know Coach Hodling. We know it's going to be on Santa Rosa, but Rancho Cotati in this one, they're just too much for Santa Rosa.
Yeah, Rancho is just a better team. I'm sorry, Santa Rosa, but I mean, this is just an unfortunate year for Santa Rosa to kind of be in a rebuilding year and then have to go up to the NBL Oak. So, yeah, just a tough season for Santa Rosa, but yeah, Rancho in this one.
Yep. All right, big game for the Redwood Stakes here. Healdsburg versus Pioneer. They had some bad blood boiling over into this one after last year. I talked to the Healdsburg boys. They really wanted this one back. I'm going with Pioneer. I think that offense is going to be super explosive in this one. But folks, you are reading correctly. Gus Morris and Healdsburg are in the same area here. Gus is going with his Greyhounds. He told me off camera it was the final game of the season, so why the heck not? Gus, tell me why you're going with Healdsburg.
I need to ride with my boys at least one more time this year. So obviously it has not been a season to remember for Healdsburg, but last chance that I have to pick these guys. I think both of these teams are, neither of these teams is going to the playoffs. So this is kind of a pride game for sure. I think both of these teams have a lot of pride, to play for, but I think there is a little more, on Healdsburg's shoulders to not go, winless in a season. So I don't know. I got a feeling about my Greyhounds this week. So Hounds in this one in a close one.
That game is going to be at the always infamous Rec Park. All right, Petaluma versus American Canyon. Gus, this is the biggie for the VVAL. Petaluma, obviously, we've talked about it before, controls its own destiny. American Canyon, though, riding in hot, obviously super fired up, especially after that win against Casa a couple weeks back. But in this case, they traveled to Petaluma. We're both going with Petaluma. We think they bounce back after the win at the loss against Casa.
This will be a close one as well, I think. Yeah, kind of a similar style game for both teams. American Canyon a little more run heavy. Petaluma obviously very run heavy. So I think it'll be kind of a grounded out defensive slugfest. A lot of runs. I mean, again, but I think Petaluma also knows what's at stake here. They would love to have a first round game, or first round playoff game, and they're almost assuredly going to make the playoffs. But if they beating American Canyon will absolutely kind of guarantee them a spot, probably in the top 4.
Spot, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's huge. Obviously going forward, you get 1, maybe 2 home playoff games, and, playing at Petaluma is always tough. So, I think Petaluma knows what's at stake here. They're hosting American Canyon. I think MCAM, they're also shooing for a playoff team too. But yeah, I don't know. I just got a feeling about Petaluma. I don't see them losing 2 straight in the VVAL. So Petaluma in this one.
Yep. Sticking in the VVAL, Casa Grande going to Justin Siena. One thing we've seen this season, Gus, is when teams have a gigantic win, they have a chance for a letdown in the next game. I don't see this one. I don't see Casa having a letdown after the win against Petaluma, although Justin Siena does play him tough every year. I just think Casa Grande kind of, keeps the momentum going after the win against Petaluma. What do you say?
Yeah, similar thing. I think that Casa also kind of knows what's at stake here. I mean, they're probably assured a playoff spot, but again, a win here would absolutely guarantee them one. And yeah, I mean, this is also kind of one of these games where I think that team size is going to be play a big factor. I mean, Casa has like something like 40, 50 guys on like that they dress for every game. Justin is in like the high 20s if they're lucky. So it looks like they have 30 on their roster right now on max preps, which again means they'll probably dress about like 20, probably 26, something like that. So, with these games of big size disparity like this, talent obviously is important, but especially late in the season too, if you can just kind of rotate guys in and out like that, I think it's going to be a big help for Casa. So, I think Casa wins this one and or heads into playoffs, feeling strong. So,
yep. All right, Sonoma Valley versus Napa. Gus, huge one for the Dragons here, obviously.
Yeah.
And not only for VVAL play, but for playoff implications as well. Both teams not having the best seasons in the VVAL by any stretch of the imagination. This is going to be at Sonoma Valley. This is Gus. This is a huge one. This is a huge one for the Dragons to kind of have a great end to the season here and hopefully go into playoffs. And you know what? We're both rolling with the Dragons on this one.
Yeah, the max preps for the Dragons right now is not working, but it's been it's been a long time since they've made playoffs. And even if they win this one, I think if they win this one, they should get in. Napa is a D2 school. They're obviously not having a great season. These are the two bottom teams in the VVAL, but Sonoma Valley, once they got into VVAL play, they're 0-5 right now. They started the year 3-1. A couple of their wins actually look pretty good. I mean, the winner of Kelseyville now. Kelseyville's is kind of making some noise over in D7, and they're looking like a playoff team. So, I kind of same thing as I said about teams like like Monty and Casa. Like this is a game that could decide decide one, I guess, even bigger picture trajectory of a program. I mean, Sonoma Valley hasn't made playoffs in a long time, but if they make playoffs too, it's a huge swing for them, and they have a lot of kids coming back, next year. And then same thing with Pride as well. It's like, can they finish the year out with the win, and make the postseason for the first time in a long time. So, I think it'll be a battle. I know that Sonoma Valley has been kind of eyeing this one, for a while. I think I talked to their interim coach. I think their head coach, Clay Jackson, has been out with I think he tore his ACL or something after an early season game. So he's been on sideline for a while. But I talked to their interim coach a while back after one of their tough losses, and he had said the Napa game is one that we have really focused on and circled. So if we can win that one, I think that we can make playoffs. And right now I think they're like the 8-9 spot right now over in, what are they, D5, I want to say. So we'll see. But if they can win this game, it would be huge for them, even, just to go in. So I think Sonoma Valley is going to come out prepared, ready for this game. And I think it'll be close, but I think Sonoma Valley does come out on top. So.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. All right. Cloverdale versus Clear Lake. We're split on this one. I'm going Cloverdale. I think they play spoiler to the NCL1 Chaos Circus, whatever you call it, that's going on over there. Gus, you're going with Clear Lake. Clearly they are not rolling, rolling through people. But Gus, let's try to make sense of these scenarios going on.
I don't even know where to begin. But so I guess we'll just start off with Clear Lake is 5-1 in league. And we have, 4 teams tied for second at 4-2 after last week. So we have Middletown, Kelseyville, Willits, and Cloverdale, all tied at 4-2. And we had some weird results last week where Kelseyville beat Middletown. Willits beat Clear Lake. So it was just kind of all over the place. I mean, the NCL1 has been kind of wacky and weird all season, and I feel like the last few weeks have just been really, exemplify that. But yeah, I mean, if Cloverdale beats Clear Lake, that way at the very least end it at a 2-way tie between those two atop the league. I don't know what the tiebreakers are, unfortunately, over there. I haven't done any homework on that, unfortunately, at this point. But yeah, I mean, again, based on some of these other results, I mean, if Middletown beats St. Helena, if Fort Bragg or Willits beats Fort Bragg, or basically it all comes down to, can Cloverdale get past Clear Lake in this one? And if they can, then it opens the door up for a ton of possible wacky scenarios. So all that being said, Clear Lake has been very, 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 very talented or very good this year. They're kind of, they prior to last week's game, they were 9-0. They were 5-0 in the, the NCL1. They were kind of, running over teams. And even, the game that they lost to Willits was an overtime game. And if you remember going back, Cloverdale beat Willits in an overtime game. So I think those two teams are very evenly matched. And I think that this is going to be a very evenly matched game. It is at Cloverdale, which I think will be an advantage for the Eagles. But I don't know. Something about this just kind of gives me a vibe about Clear Lake kind of comes out of this one. I think that
you and your juju vibes. Jeez,
coming off of Clear Lake, I mean, a program like that where they've been so good all season long, I don't know if they have 2 losses in a row in them. So Taylor Galloway over there at Cloverdale, put this up as motivation, throw this up on the bulletin board. I totally deserve it if, put it up there for all the kids to see. But I'm taking Clear Lake in this one. I don't think they lose 2 straight. So.
Yep. No facts, just vibes. Great journalism.
Just vibes.
Just vibes. All right. Roseland University Prep at Potter Valley. Little Friday night action for Roseland. Very few they had this season. Roseland surprisingly is actually should be Max Press says 5-1 in league, but they actually should be 4-1 because the Emory contest should not be counted as a win. But regardless, they only have 1 loss in league. As of right now, it looks like they are second. Potter Valley's kind of in the middle of the pack there. But Roseland Prep, we're talking about programs and ascending programs. Roseland University Prep is high up on our list. I think we have I think they have a great end to the season here with a win at Potter Valley on Friday Night Lights. Gus, you think the same?
Yeah, I actually have a feature coming out about these guys. Probably check for that on Saturday, or it might be up online Friday. But yeah, I mean, I went and talked to them. This is a very, I mean, like I think we've discussed them a few times already, on the pod. But they're a new program. They had their first season in 2018. I think it's their third season ever, as a program, and this is their best season ever. They're starting to click. They have a lot of guys who are buying in, who are hitting the weight room, who are really starting to learn the game of football. And I mean, if you look at the last couple, full games they've played, they beat John Sweat 40-0. They beat Round Valley 46-6. They beat Emory in a game that was, rescheduled 54-14. Last week they were supposed to play their final home game of the regular season, but against Laytonville, but Laytonville had to bow out due to, I guess, a lack of players. It's kind of been a recurring theme over in the NCL3, just, small 8-man teams, just not able to field enough guys. But Rosen is one of these teams where you look across kind of the landscape of football in America, and, a lot of programs are kind of, slowly dwindling with numbers and aren't as strong as they used to be. Rosen's the opposite. They're getting more and more players. I mean, for a school of their size, they have something like mid-20s that they dress for an 8-man team, which is kind of amazing. They have hopes of Sunday, being an 11-man team, but, for now they're still kind of figuring out, what it takes to win and be a program and how to play football. So they are cruising right now. They're winning a lot of games. They're having a lot of fun doing it. There's a spirit that's really high over there. And shoot, if they win this game, they could probably qualify for playoffs for 8-man football, which would be huge for a program in its third ever season playing. So
absolutely.
Kind of like with the Yieldspur game, I'm rolling on vibes here. I'm going with RUP. I think, I mean, again, just what a great feel-good story if RUP can close this year out with, whatever, 5 straight wins.
Huge.
Yeah, and go into playoffs. I mean, that'd be nuts. So, RUP vibes.
Yeah, you're down with RUP. Yeah, you know me. We got to change the lyrics to that song. All right. Saturday marquee, Maria Carrillo at St. Vincent. Obviously, we touched on this before, but big game for NBL Redwood Stakes. St. Vincent controls their own destiny. I will be at this game, seeing if St. Vincent can close out that outright league title, or if Maria Carrillo could play spoiler. We know Maria Carrillo was hit with a little bit of a cold flu bug, a little bit, had lost
and tons of injuries too. They've
all the injuries, man. But regardless, they've powered through, and honestly, they've done pretty well with what they've had. Seems that they're already deep. Running back carousel is even deeper than we thought.
Yeah.
So Jay Higgins is really doing well. We're getting those guys ready, but won't help him this time. I don't think. I'm going with St. Vincent. I think St. Vincent is just too much on a roll. I think they're completely focused now. I think that adversity game against St. Bernard's the second time around, really helped them get in the right path, especially with that trip up to Ukiah where they really took care of business. I just think they keep taking care of business in this one and head into the playoffs with a strong case of momentum and possibly a league title.
I don't disagree. I think this will be a really, really big test for St. Vincent as well. I mean, Maria Carrillo kind of does, again, the rushing attack has kind of been decimated by injuries the last couple of weeks, but like you said, they have a ton of guys who are stepping up. But St. Vincent, again, they've done me, or I guess I've done them wrong by picking against them a couple times, and that's come back.
They've put you in your place.
Which fair enough.
They're
I guess I've underestimated them a few times, and I've said before I'm not making that mistake again. So St. Vincent in this one, finished the year 10-0, first round or number 1 overall seed in D7. I think they're going to go on to win D7. St. Vincent in this one, but I think it could be closer. I think than maybe what some of the projections might be. So, but I still think St. Vincent probably wins by a touchdown. So at least.
Yep. St. Vincent can certainly face some more adversity and no fitting than the final game of the season, almost like a championship game, if you will.
No doubt.
All right, so that wraps up our predictions and kind of like our football coverage here. Lots of stuff going on. Obviously, going to be an exciting last week of the regular season here in the area. Let's touch on a couple other things, Gus. Volleyball, our lone team left in the NCS is Roseland Collegiate Prep. I believe they're D6. They play tonight at San Francisco Waldorf, who is the top seed. So good luck to them. NCS doubles tennis tournament is happening. NBL, excuse me. NBL tournament is happening at 1 p.m. today and Thursday. That is taking place in Santa Rosa. So we will have you updated on that and who goes on for the NCS automatic qualifier. Keep in mind, Maria Carrillo is already in the NCS for the team NCS tournaments as well. So we'll just keep on updating you as where things stand. Sonoma State Soccer starts their postseason campaign with a bye, and they play Friday morning at 11:30. So lots of stuff going on in the area that, especially this next coming week, guys. It's going to be quite the busy week.
Yeah, this always happens towards the playoff time with all these fall and especially springtime sports. We have like 7 or 8 things going on. So yeah, I mean, and even a couple of other things too. I mean, NBL cross country and Vival too is coming down to the wire. The Redwood Championship meet is going to be held at Saturday, I believe, at Ukiah. And then the Oak is going to be at Spring Lake. Obviously the teams to watch there are, Maria Carrillo and Montgomery, the top 2 teams for both the boys and girls this year. Hannah Thompson, obviously, Montgomery, sophomore phenom. I know she's been gunning for that Clear Lake or the Spring Lake course record. It's come up short a couple times, but she'll have one last chance to get it, to get it on Saturday. Jude DeVries over there too, Montgomery senior. He's been, the top boys runner in the area. So yeah, it could be an exciting couple races over there at Spring Lake on Saturday, and then same thing up at Ukiah. And then I guess also girls golf too. We had Gabby Sinatra of Cardinal Newman shoot 2 under par 69 over at Foxtail South in Roner Park. Tied for second overall in a field of like 120 something golfers, like top tier division 1 golfers too. So she's off to the NorCal Regionals, the only local qualifier to go that far. But great season for her, senior year. I think she shot a 76 at the individual qualifier for D2 2 weeks ago at Rooster Run. So she's having a great, again, capping off her senior season, with a couple awesome results. So. But yeah, I mean, just tons of stuff going on. And then there's even other sports that we haven't even, been able to get to and cover this year. There's some small school fall soccer going on. I believe water polo playoffs just started too. So we'll see if we can get to all those. But, again, we're still only a 2-man staff and only so much we can do. So, and like you've heard, there's a ton of stuff going on. So we'll get to what we can, but yeah, lots of exciting stuff going on here in the Red Empire outside of just football. So stay tuned for more coverage of all that.
Yep, and as always, you can check it out. Link will be down below. But PressDemocrat.com/sports/PDPreps. My Twitter's at KODoherty22. Gus, yours is at JustGusPD, and then our main account is at PDPrep. So make sure you give all of us a follow. We'll be having a lot of updates and things coming on, going on in the next week, and just continuing on throughout the school year. So, yep, we will keep you updated. So make sure you just keep following and listening. We appreciate you guys for watching, and or however you take in this podcast, whatever it may be. But appreciate you guys as always, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yep. Next episode, we'll be doing some NCS football preview stuff too. So seasons come out on Sunday. And yeah, we're excited for that too. So as always, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.